also say that JayZ, if he was doing ill shit like that, he was more quiet about it. You know what I mean? He was more, but then, if we be real with ourselves, it was kind of abnormal when he got with Beyonce. Like, she was pretty young.
You know what I mean? Like, morally, we just don't, we weren't, it's just not the same fabric. So that's why I went and did my thing. I'm not as tolerant as certain things.
Industry, man, it's not the same. Doesn't have to do with talent, it's about playing the game. The industry, real dying to get in. The industry, just to find they don't fit in.
Rappers are starting to come forward as JayZ's new lawsuit sends shockwaves through the industry. This explosive development is turning the hip-hop world upside down. After a bombshell lawsuit accused both stars of misconduct dating back to 2000, things have taken a dark turn. A woman who's kept quiet for years is finally speaking out, claiming that as a 13-year-old by both Diddy and JayZ at an MTV Video Music Awards afterparty. With shocking new details emerging, these moguls could be facing serious consequences that no one saw coming. Stay tuned, this story is far from over. A whisper, a fleeting claim in the chaotic world of celebrity culture. But when the name Sean Carter, better known to the world as JayZ, is involved, whispers quickly ignite into a wildfire.
We've been following this huge update to a civil lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs, where his friend and fellow music industry titan JayZ, real name Sean Carter, has been publicly named as Celebrity A, the man who allegedly sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl in New York in 2000 after the VMAs. And this is part of a civil lawsuit filed by Texas attorney Tony Busby on behalf of this unnamed Jane Doe. And she says that when she was 13, she reportedly met one of Combs' limo drivers outside of the VMAs at Radio City Music Hall in New York. She says that he invited her to an after party that Combs was throwing. The lawsuit claims that she was drugged at that party, and when she went to find somewhere to lay down, Combs and JayZ allegedly.
A new wave of leaked footage and online theories has reignited scrutiny on JayZ's past relationships with Rihanna and Aaliyah, and not in a flattering light. What's emerging now could completely reshape how we view the music mogul.
The diva Rihanna. She's from Barbados?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's Bayesian.
Okay, she's Bayesian. How did you come in contact with her? I mean, did you fly over there?
No, Jay Brown had actually bought me the song. She has a song right now, and it's I wouldn't say massive because of her roots, but she has this outrageous song called Upon the Replay. And he played that song for me, and I was scared. I was like, that song is too big for her. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, a new artist, when a song is that big, it's it's hard to come back from. And I don't sign songs, I sign artists.
Let's dive into a viral TikTok theory that has been sending shockwaves across the internet.
If you didn't know, Michael Jackson, Aaliyah, and Left Eye all died on the 25th day of the month. So what people are saying is that these three people were taken out by the three string pullers of the entertainment industry: JayZ, Beyonce, and P. Diddy. And J. Cole knows something we all don't, because on the chorus, J. Cole sings she knows, over and over again, but if you listen close enough, it kind of sounds like he's saying Sean Knowles. Sean, which is both JayZ and P. Diddy's real name, and Knowles, which is Beyonce's last name. Then later on in the song, it seems like J. Cole is subliminally telling us that Beyonce is in control of everything. He says, I can't be what you want from me. Well, alright. And if you replace the B with Beyonce and break it down like that, it's actually crazy. I can't be what you want from me. Well, alright.
This theory, while purely speculative and lacking concrete evidence, highlights a larger issue. The resurfacing of an old clip featuring JayZ and a young Rihanna is just one striking example of this phenomenon.
Rihanna was trafficked to Def Jam.
She was an innocent baby when she came over here. And look
She
at
was
her now.
14 going on 15 years old. Flown over without parental supervision in a private plane by a man who was supposed to be a producer, who auditioned her at 3 a.m. in the fucking morning in a hotel room. Auditioning at 3 a.m. in the morning, a 14-year-old girl. She was flown to another country damn history.
Imagine being in Rihanna's shoes back then, a nervous, ambitious teenager auditioning in front of one of the biggest names in music. As Rihanna herself recounted, JayZ didn't hold back and was brutally blunt.
He did it homework. I did a lot of homework on you, Miss Lady. He said,
And she's old school is cool.
This brings us to Aaliyah. Photos of JayZ, Aaliyah, and Diddy have been circulating on social media, raising uncomfortable questions. The circumstances surrounding her passing continue to spark debate and sorrow, leaving many to wonder how such a promising life could be lost under such preventable conditions.
According to a new book called Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah, by Kathy Ian Doley, a source is claiming that Aaliyah was hesitant to get on the plane the day of the plane crash. The source says that Aaliyah was given a sleeping pill and carried onto the plane unconscious before the fatal crash happened in the Bahamas. Kingsley Russell, who was 13 at the time, was in the car that drove Aaliyah and her team to the airport for their return flight to Miami. According to Kingsley Russell, they took her out of the van and she didn't even know she was getting boarded on a plane. Russell says she went on that airplane asleep. Now, Aaliyah was in the Bahamas shooting the video for Rock the Boat, and she had just wrapped a video shoot earlier that day. And when it was time to board the plane, Aaliyah was allegedly reluctant to get on after learning that the plane was over its weight limit and informed that the plane would struggle to handle 8 passengers, which included Aaliyah's bodyguard, who weighed over 300 pounds. He said that she grew more and more concerned when they arrived to the airport and she discovered that they would be flying on a small plane. He also says Aaliyah fell asleep in the cab with complaints of a headache as her team tried to sort out the travel situation, and when they returned to the cab, Aaliyah continued to protest. That's when Russell says that one of her team members gave her a sleeping pill, and shortly after that, they boarded the plane, and that is when the tragic incident took place.
Aaliyah's name has echoed through music, pop culture, and controversy ever since her untimely passing. However, as her autopsy findings resurfaced, they unearthed that a harrowing question: could Aaliyah have foreseen her tragic fate? Could she have begged for a chance to escape it? These chilling possibilities cast a shadow over her legacy, leaving fans and the world grappling with the what-ifs surrounding her final moments.
Plane crash that killed a rising star in the world of music and film. Reaction today after Aaliyah and 8 others were killed when their plane went down. Good evening, I'm Lauren Glassbergen for Sandra Bookman.
And I'm Tim Fleischer. The plane, just after taking off for Florida in perfect weather, suddenly plummeted to the ground. Investigators now saying one of the engines apparently failed. Along with 8 passengers, Aaliyah, a young Brooklyn native and a talented singer and actress. Jeff Rosten is live in Times Square with more on her life. Jeff.
And Aaliyah had a huge following not only here in New York City but nationwide. Only 22 years old, this pop sensation was a popular singer. She was an actress in some movies recently, even a Grammy nominee. Tonight, her family is in mourning. Fans asking, why her?
In 2001, Aaliyah Dana Houghton was living her moment. She wasn't just an R&B star, she was the star. At just 22 years old, she was redefining the sound of music with her ethereal voice and effortless style. Albums like 1 in a Million and hits like Are You That Somebody weren't merely songs, they were cultural resets, shaping the landscape of music and leaving an indelible mark on pop culture.
She was everywhere. She was definitely could have been on the level of Beyonce.
Aaliyah's death left fans, family, and others in the music industry wondering, what could have been?
I think about it all the time. Sometimes when I'm playing her songs on the radio now, I just have a moment, just reflect and say, hey, I'm thinking about you, Aaliyah. You know, I know her spirit is doing something right now because she's the kind of spirit that'll last forever.
She could be, you know, considered a queen of her generation. I think she could have been anything she wanted to be.
People have compared her to, she could have been bigger than Beyonce.
Well, that possibility is there for sure. I think that she was on that trajectory for sure.
But on August 25th, 2001, it all ended far too soon. Aaliyah had just finished filming the music video for Rock the Boat in the Bahamas. The shoot was stunning yet grueling, and, as it turned out, fatally complicated. Production was running behind schedule, flights were being rearranged, and a sense of chaos buzzed around the crew's departure. What should have been a moment of triumph quickly unraveled into tragedy.
Cessna crash. Aaliyah was scheduled to come back to South Florida on Sunday with the charter company Sky Limo in this 15-passenger plane, which can carry up to 4,500 pounds of fuel, passengers, and luggage. But for some reason, Aaliyah and her entourage chose to leave on Saturday afternoon in the smaller Cessna.
We feel very terrible about what happened. It was, obviously a terrible tragedy. One of those things of fate that, if she'd been on this plane that next day, maybe this all wouldn't have happened. We all wouldn't be here.
According to testimonies years later, Aaliyah was tired and uncomfortable in the moments leading up to the flight. One witness claimed she even resisted getting on the plane, sensing something wasn't right. This unsettling detail adds to the growing sense of foreboding that would tragically prove to be all too real.
On August the 25th,
final moments.
The crash was devastating. It happened instantly. The wreckage lay just a few yards off the runway, with the plane shattered, its engine and wings torn apart on impact. Aaliyah and 5 others died immediately, while 3 more passengers succumbed to their injuries shortly after. The scene was one of utter devastation, forever altering the lives of those who loved her and the world that adored her.
The plane was ready for departure. Positioned on runway 27, the west-facing side, Captain Morales powered up his plane and began the takeoff run. The plane would use little over half of the runway to accelerate to takeoff speed. Captain Morales angled his plane into the air and immediately experienced difficulty in controlling the aircraft. In the plane's very short flight, the aircraft peaked at an altitude under 100 feet above the runway. As the plane was highly unbalanced, the Cessna pitched into a high nose-up attitude. The left wing began to drop as not enough lift was being generated by the wings to sustain the excessive weight of the aircraft. This led into a left bank and the nose dropped. In the following seconds, the plane fell to the ground. In a nose-down left bank attitude, the Cessna crashed into the ground in a marshy area just beyond the end of the runway. A fire consumed the wreckage of the aircraft. 8 of the plane's 9 occupants were dead, killed when the plane crashed. there was one initial survivor, Aaliyah's own bodyguard, Scott Gallen. He was found by first responders, but he passed away shortly after the crash. The investigation put the accident down to multiple factors: an overweight plane, improper distribution of the weight, an unqualified pilot, falsified documents, and poor airline management.
At first glance, it seemed like a tragic accident, but when investigators and coroners pieced together the details, the truth became harder to swallow. What appeared to be a random disaster soon revealed unsettling facts, raising more questions than answers about the circumstances surrounding the crash.
Some are wondering whether the crash that took Aaliyah's life was truly an accident. Despite no definitive evidence, some online sleuths believe that Aaliyah's death may have been organized to protect famous faces in the music industry who may have been involved in Diddy's alleged crimes. More intriguing, however, is a detail concerning the moments before the fateful plane crash. According to the Daily Beast, Aaliyah had a known fear of flying. Some question why she would have boarded the private plane, which was small and overloaded with luggage, a contributing factor in the crash. An eyewitness whose family reportedly owned the taxi company Aaliyah and her team used to get to the airport claimed to have seen her being carried onto the plane unconscious.
Did she have time to realize the danger? Did she know her life was slipping away? These haunting questions linger as we try to understand the final moments of Aaliyah's life, hoping for answers that might never fully come.
But then I'm like, the autopsy reports as at then should probably have been able to say if there was drug in her body or... But
it was
really
the pilots that they were alleging
that
had the name and its license, Even the author said she was with Aaliyah before she went on that plane.
I mean, there have been so many things.
That's why the story is important for her to even go proper and do the investigation proper.
Things around Aaliyah. So many unfinished businesses, even her relationship, her love life, you know, everything that has been around her. People have so many questions. I'm not surprised that this book is coming out, and I think that it's closure for some people as well.
For her.
Those chilling questions made headlines when the autopsy report was revisited, casting the crash in an even darker light. Aaliyah's death wasn't just quick and tragic, it may have been terrifying. The revelations added a layer of horror to an already devastating loss, leaving those who loved her grappling with the possibility that her final moments were filled with fear.
Weather conditions were good, so the plane took off around 6:45 p.m. The plane began flying at high speed over the runway 27 and took off quickly. It banked to the left as it reached an altitude of about 40 feet above the runway. Suddenly, the aircraft tilted forward and hit the marshy terrain with its left wing and nose. The aircraft then rolled around before finally coming to a stop about 300 feet before the end of the runway, heading east. The plane had sustained heavy damage, and a fire broke out after the crash. About 135 square meters of the south side of runway 27 was covered with the wreckage. Lewis Key, a 25-year-old charter pilot who worked on an aircraft about half a mile away, witnessed the crash. He saw the Cessna crash when it was only 60 to 100 feet above the ground. The man ran to a fire truck and was horrified when he arrived at the crash site. It was an awful sight. Some bodies were so badly disfigured, you couldn't identify them. And two guys were alive, one screaming and screaming for help. He was horribly burned all over, said charter pilot Lewis Key. I've seen crashes before, but that was probably one of the worst ones, he said. It was pretty devastating. The aircraft was broken into pieces, and some of the seats were thrown from the aircraft. First responders on the scene found Aaliyah's body about 20 meters from the wreckage. She was immediately deceased. According to a later autopsy report, she had severe burns and head injuries. Just before the collision, she had gone into shock that weakened her heart. The coroner later indicated that even if she had survived the accident, her injuries were so severe that she might never have fully recovered. Aaliyah was only 22 years old.
If the plane crash wasn't heartbreaking enough, the investigation revealed even more disturbing facts. The pilot, Luis Morales, wasn't even qualified to fly the Cessna. He had been hired just days before the flight and shockingly had cocaine in his system at the time of the crash. To make matters worse, Morales had been on probation for possession only 2 weeks prior, raising serious questions about the choices that led to that fateful day.
Before the crash, Aaliyah's pilot, Luis Morales, had been on the wrong side of the law when he got arrested for possession of cocaine and got probation after a traffic stop on July 7th revealed traces of cocaine in his car. The autopsy further revealed traces of cocaine and alcohol. Shockingly, this pilot was not certified to fly the ill-fated plane. Luis Morales was on probation for theft charges in the same period. Similar criminal charges in November of the previous year included stealing pencils, pens, a cigarette lighter adapter, panel lights, and aircraft tools. He got 3-year probation with no adjudication, meaning that his record would have been cleared if he had completed probation. Luis Morales was often in trouble with the authorities and was on probation when flying this plane. Uncertified. The reports of the plane crash exposed that Luis Morales was not certified to fly the 10-seat Cessna. While he was a pilot, he was not certified to fly this specific plane safely. More shocking news revealed that the pilot was only trained for 3 weeks to fly this size of an aircraft before the fatal crash. This information was revealed to the public by colleagues who had trained him. Luis worked for Blackhawk International Airways and had been placed at the controls 2 days before the accident.
This wasn't just negligence, it was recklessness. Authorities later confirmed that the plane was 700 pounds overweight when it took off. Combined with Morales' lack of certification, it's clear that this flight was a ticking time bomb. Aaliyah and her team were unknowingly placed in an impossible situation, with factors stacking against them from the very moment they boarded.